Hey everyone, Nashi here. So, today's video got a lot of requests on how to do the 4 blind thrusts that I've been doing a lot in my streams as well as some of my recent videos. And I thought I'd take the opportunity to put this video together to kind of go over how to do it properly. That way you can maximize its potential and start catching people really quickly and effectively with the 4 blind thrust. So first things first, let's go over the skill real quick. That way you guys know what I'm talking about. So right now I have absolute blind thrust. You can do it with any of the ranks. However, I would recommend getting absolute, as it does slightly increase the range, as it says attack range up on each level, I believe. Let me see, actually. Nope, it only does it on absolute. So, but I do recommend getting the absolute because it will definitely help out with not only just even a little bit more damage, but it's the attack range increase will go a long ways, even if it's minimal. You'd be surprised how much that could actually impact it. But basically, how this skill works is whenever you use blind thrust, you will get a 30% crit buff for 10 seconds, regardless of you actually hitting an opponent. So this means if you miss or if you actually hit your opponent, you get a 30% increased crit rate. And then if you actually connect with your opponent, you'll actually do a melee accuracy rate negative 30% for 10 seconds on your opponent. Now, that is not a true 30%, so don't really worry about that per se. That's probably not going to save you, but it's something to, keep in mind. The main thing we are looking at here is when you are using blind thrust, notice that the cooldown is 6 seconds. It does have a stamina cost of 100, so 6 seconds, you could pretty much keep 30% crit buff up permanently because you got a 4-second window, so it's pretty nice. It helps beef up our damage quite considerably. So using this on the regular is, in my opinion, I wouldn't say a must, but it's highly recommended. If you're not using this, you're just gimping your damage. Um, and then if you follow my skill add-on guide, as I may have mentioned in there, skill abilities and skill add-ons, they stack. So for example, this 30% crit buff will stack with my Dragon Bite add-on buff, which gives 20% crit for 9 seconds. So as a demonstration, you get 30% crit, and then you get a second one for 20%. So I have 50% additional crit right there. So that's pretty fucking amazing. And then when you apply that 50% extra crit to skills like Moonrise, which doesn't have a base crit value of its own, so it bases its crit chance on your normal crit and then any buffs. And then also skills like Cloud Stab, which also does not have a base crit rate for PvP, however it does for PvE, as you'll see there. It really significantly beats the damage up. So those are things to consider when utilizing 4-blind thrust and why I recommend utilizing it moving forward if you haven't started utilizing it yet. Other ones that I have skill add-ons on that will give you 30% crit buff would be like Stigma as an add-on buff. So you could do, for example, well, I didn't connect with it actually, so let's try that again, shall we? There we go. So this would give me 60, because I have two 30% crit buffs. So, just as an example. Alright, so let's get into the skill itself. Now, how we use this is one of our main engage tools. At least one of the main engage tools that I've been utilizing, and I know a lot of other Musa and Maehwa have been picking it up recently. So I wanted to go over that for newer players that were trying to get into the class so they have a true understanding of how to utilize it. How I try to explain this and to break it down to its bare essential parts is, think of the skill as 2 pieces. The first piece is when you're doing the 4-blind thrust, that you have the distance and then you have the actual poke CC. So those are 2 parts, 2 pieces. And first things first, I should actually go over how to do the forward blind thrust. So you'll see in the tooltip here, if you do space during any certain action, for example, left click, as it is typically done, you'll do the twirl around. This is the normal blind thrust. That's what you'll end up doing. You could do this no matter what, regardless if it's on cooldown. As you'll see right here, I could spam it, but it won't CC if it's off, if it's on cooldown. So the forward blind thrust version, though, you need to do W, left click, then space. The hotkey or the tooltip there is actually wrong, so I don't know why they have forward and then space. It's wrong. So you want to do forward, left click, and then space. That's the key sequence. Forward, left click, space. You'll notice that I won't do forward blind thrust if it's on cooldown, so you can only do this off cooldown. So this is what you end up doing if you try to do it. You just do the normal backwards twirl, which won't have a CC. But it will still refresh your buff rate, I believe, actually. No, it won't, actually. Your buff rate will only refresh every time you have it off cooldown. So, alright, so now we've established that you can only do forward blind thrust when it's off cooldown. It's the only time you're ever going to do forward blind thrust. You gotta wait for the cooldown to come up, and then you can do it again. And that's our goal here. We want to use forward blind thrust, not the normal twirl around blind thrust, because that's ultimately kind of quote-unquote useless. Not really, but you can make use of it, just not really useful for what we're doing, since we're trying to use blind thrust as an engaged technique. So now that we know how to do forward blind thrust, forward, left click, and space, now we can learn how to actually utilize it for an engage tool like I was talking about. So, like I was saying, there's two parts to it. You got the distance part, and then you have the CC. Those are two separate pieces, both of which are actually linked to your camera angle. So, for example, say I'm looking this direction, but my character's facing over here. So, if I do forward blind thrust, I will aim towards my camera, rightfully so. So, and then, like I said, the second part, which is the actual poke CC, that also is based on camera. So if I were to turn my camera mid-dash for the distance part, it'll actually change the direction of my actual poke. Watch. So you see how I'm angling this way now? Now, I turned my camera a little bit more this way, but that's because of I was a little slow on the actual turn. But that's just to give a quick demo. So I did basically almost a 180. So I went forward, and then I turned my CC around. So that's kind of the idea of what we're going for here. So we want to bypass the person that we're attacking and then poke them in the back. And this is an attempt to actually bypass frontal guards, as I like to say. So your opponent will be like holding up their frontal guard right here, and then I want to get past them first, and then I want to have my camera turn so that my poke goes to their back, or at least to their side. Some frontal guards are weird with their angles, so they cover usually a distance like right around here. So you want to just try to poke like about right here at the minimum, and then you'll be good. So to give a quick demonstration, you'll see that I stiffed the mob right here from the back. I actually missed him even though it kind of clicked, probably an accuracy issue. So right there, hit him again. So that's the idea. That's what we're trying to do. Notice how I'm doing a quick flick of my camera after I start blind thrust movement. I turn it immediately, and then after I do the turn, I hit back chase as a follow-up. That's what I'm doing. So I forward blind thrust. If I were to not do the back chase, this is what I'm doing. So I do forward blind thrust, and then back chase. That's what you want to do. The reason why you want that back chase follow-up is for a variety of reasons, but the main ones is to get yourself back into super armor so that you're protected from any AoE CCs. And it also gives you a little bit of a distance gap so you don't get grabbed if your CC failed to actually CC your opponent. And it lets you gauge to see if you actually CC'd. So it's a confirmed CC opportunity. It gives you a chance to confirm that your CC actually connected. And then you can follow up with an example would be like D-Byte into Red Moon. So let me show that. So that would be an example of how you could follow up. So it's a very basic scenario. There's a variety of different ways you could follow up. You could do anything from like utilizing absolute roundhouse kick, which is a knockdown when you have it as absolute. It's a very good skill for a follow-up, but it is risky because it's a knockdown, and a lot of people get knockdown resistance fairly quickly and easily with adamantium gems and boots, but that's a totally different topic. But so you could do it like that. And that was like a really slow, sluggish way to do it, but I did it slow so that you could kind of see the representation. So here would be a much quicker version. And then you could do whatever you want to them while they're on the ground. So those are just some quick examples of how to do it, and how you can utilize this CC for an engage tool. What I'll go ahead and do is I'll take some clips from PvP videos I have and even my stream and show some demos moving forward. Enjoy.